The Zephyrian orphanage sat like a forgotten cube of metal and despair on the outer rim of Kepler Station. Inside, 47 young aliens of various species huddled together in the common room, their luminescent eyes reflecting the pale glow of artificial lighting that never quite felt warm enough. "Tell us about Earth traditions again," whispered Crix, a small Tenthari child whose translucent skin shimmered with nervous patterns. The other younglings gathered closer, forming a circle of hope and curiosity that had become their evening ritual. Zara, the eldest at 12 standard years, cleared her throat. Her vegan heritage showed in her elongated limbs and the soft blue tint of her skin. She had learned about human customs from the data tablets in the education center, and the stories fascinated her more than any quantum physics lesson ever could. "Humans have this celebration called Christmas," she began, her voice carrying the weight of someone trying to keep magic alive in a place where wonder went to die. "During this time, they believe in a being called Santa Claus. He's supposed to travel across their entire planet in one night, bringing gifts to children who have been good throughout the year." A chorus of gasps and excited chatter erupted from the younger children. Little Gorp, a crystalline whose body refracted light in beautiful patterns, raised a tiny hand. "How does he carry so many gifts? Is he very strong like a Goliathan?" "No," Zara smiled, remembering the illustrations she had seen. "He uses flying creatures called reindeer and a magical sleigh, and he enters homes through chimneys, which are these tube-like structures humans use for heating." The children's eyes widened with wonder. Even the usually skeptical Nyx, a young Hellion whose species prided itself on logic, leaned forward with interest. "But how does he know who deserves gifts? Does he have surveillance technology?" "The stories say he just knows," Zara explained. "He watches over all the children and keeps lists of their behavior. Good children get presents, and those who misbehave receive coal, which is a black rock humans once used for fuel." As the children peppered her with questions about reindeer capabilities and sleigh aerodynamics, none of them noticed the shadow that passed by the window. Marcus Chen, the human janitor who worked the night shift, had paused in his cleaning route to listen to their conversation. Marcus had been working at Kepler Station for 3 years, ever since the accident that left him needing steady employment and a place to disappear from his past. At 42, he was unremarkable by most standards, standing average height with graying hair and hands that showed the wear of honest work. What made him different was his heart, which had grown 3 sizes too large the moment he first heard alien children crying themselves to sleep. The Zephyrian orphanage housed the unwanted, the displaced, the survivors of conflicts that had torn families apart across the galaxy. Most species had their own welfare systems, but these children fell through the cracks, either because their worlds were too war-torn to care for orphans, or because they were mixed-species children that no single world would claim. Marcus pressed his ear closer to the door, listening as the conversation continued. "I wish Santa was real," sighed little Crix, her patterns dimming to a sad purple. "I've been very good this year. I helped clean the dormitory every day and shared my food portions with Gorp when he was sick." "Santa isn't real," came the harsh voice of Jex, a 12-year-old Krathari whose wolf-like appearance made him look older than his years. His species matured quickly in harsh environments, and Jex had learned to be cynical as a survival mechanism. "It's just a human fairy tale. Even if he were real, he only visits human children on Earth. We're aliens stuck on a space station. No magical human would ever care about us." The room fell silent, except for the soft sobbing that began to echo off the metal walls. Marcus felt something break inside his chest as he heard their dreams crumble into the reality of their situation. "Jex is right," whispered Zara, her own voice cracking. "We don't have chimneys here anyway, and even if Santa existed, he wouldn't know where to find us. We're nobody's children." The crying grew louder, and Marcus had to step away from the door before his own emotions betrayed his presence. He looked down at his janitor's uniform, at his worn cleaning cart filled with industrial supplies and recycled materials he had been planning to dispose of. An idea began forming in his mind, crazy and impossible, but growing stronger with each sob he heard through the door. That night, after his shift ended, Marcus didn't go home to his small quarters. Instead, he made his way to the station's fabrication lab. As a maintenance worker, he had access to most areas of the station, including the 3D printing facilities that were used for creating replacement parts and tools. He spent hours researching, planning, designing. The station's computer systems had extensive databases on every species represented in the orphanage. He learned about Tenthari physiology and what colors brought them comfort. He studied crystalline dietary needs and vegan cultural preferences. He researched Hellion logic puzzles and Krathari pack dynamics. By morning, Marcus had a plan that would either be the most beautiful thing he had ever done or get him fired and possibly arrested for theft of station resources. He decided he didn't care about the consequences. Over the next several weeks, Marcus became a man obsessed. During his regular work hours, he performed his duties with the same diligence as always, but every free moment was spent preparing for what he had privately begun calling Operation Christmas Magic. He requisitioned materials under the guise of station maintenance projects. Red fabric became emergency thermal wrapping. White synthetic fur was insulation material for heating ducts. LED lights were backup illumination systems. The fabrication lab hummed with his after-hours projects, creating toys and games specifically designed for each species' unique physiology and interests. For Crix, he designed a color-shifting puzzle that would respond to the Tenthari's emotional patterns, creating beautiful light displays as she solved it. For Gorp, he crafted a crystalline growth kit that would let the young crystalline cultivate his own garden of light-refracting formations. Nyx received a complex mathematical puzzle box that would challenge his Hellion intellect while revealing surprises at each solution level. The most challenging gift was for Jex. The cynical Krathari needed something that would restore his faith without making him feel foolish for believing. Marcus designed a holographic story projector that contained not just entertainment, but educational programs about pack leadership and cooperation. Hidden within the device were messages of encouragement and affirmations that Jex desperately needed to hear. As December 25th approached by Earth calendar, Marcus realized he had a logistical problem. The orphanage didn't have chimneys, and the ventilation shafts were too small for a human to navigate. But it did have emergency maintenance hatches in the ceiling, designed to provide access to the life support systems. 3 days before Christmas, Marcus began his final preparations. He modified his janitor's uniform, adding red coloring and white trim that wouldn't look suspicious during his normal duties. He practiced moving silently through the maintenance tunnels, timing his routes to avoid security patrols and automated sensor sweeps. On Christmas Eve, as the station settled into its night cycle, Marcus made his way to the orphanage. He had spent weeks studying the building's layout and the children's schedules. He knew that they would be asleep by 200 station time, and the night supervisor would be making his rounds in the opposite wing of the facility. Carrying his bag of carefully crafted gifts, Marcus climbed into the maintenance shaft above the orphanage common room. His heart pounded so loudly he was sure it would wake the children below. Through the grated ceiling panels, he could see the sleeping forms of the alien younglings, huddled together for warmth and comfort. As quietly as possible, Marcus began removing the ceiling panel directly above the room's center. The metal creaked softly as it came loose, but none of the children stirred. He lowered himself down into the room, his feet touching the cold floor with barely a whisper of sound. The sight before him nearly broke his resolve. These weren't just alien children, they were Bobbies, really, innocents who had lost everything and everyone they had ever known. They slept in makeshift beds with thin blankets, clutching improvised toys made from station scraps and each other's hands. Marcus moved like a ghost through the room, placing gifts beside each sleeping child. He had memorized their names, their species, their individual personalities observed through weeks of careful attention. Each gift was personal, thoughtful, designed to bring joy to a being who had known too little of it. As he worked, Marcus felt a presence behind him. He turned slowly to find Zara sitting up in her bed, her large vegan eyes reflecting the dim emergency lighting. She stared at him in wonder, taking in his red-trimmed uniform and the bag of gifts in his hands. "Santa," she whispered, her voice filled with awe and disbelief. Marcus looked at her for a long moment, this brave girl who told stories to keep hope alive for the younger children. He placed a finger to his lips in the universal gesture for silence, then reached into his bag and pulled out her gift, a device that would let her record and project her stories as three-dimensional holograms, complete with visual effects and character animations. He placed it gently beside her bed, then pointed upward toward the ceiling hatch. Zara followed his gesture and gasped as she understood. There was a chimney after all of sorts. The maintenance shafts that kept their world running, the hidden passages that connected every part of their home. Marcus climbed back toward the ceiling, muscles straining as he pulled himself up into the narrow maintenance tunnel. Just before he replaced the panel, he looked down at Zara one more time and saw her small hand pressed to her heart, tears streaming down her blue-tinted cheeks. He secured the ceiling panel and made his way back through the maintenance tunnels, his empty gift bag tucked away and his modified uniform restored to its normal appearance. By the time the orphanage woke for morning cycle, Marcus Chen was back in his quarters, officially off duty and fast asleep. But sleep didn't come easily. His mind raced with anticipation and terror in equal measure. Had he done enough? Would the gifts bring joy, or would they be dismissed as a cruel prank? Would Zara keep his secret, or would she tell the others what she had seen? Most importantly, would this one night of magic be enough to restore the faith of 47 children, who had every reason to stop believing in miracles? As station time ticked toward morning and the moment of truth approached, Marcus Chen closed his eyes and made a wish on the artificial stars visible through his small porthole. He wished for wonder, for joy, and for the courage to face whatever consequences his actions might bring. In the orphanage, Zara lay awake in her bed, staring at the ceiling panel that had opened like a portal to possibilities. In her hands, she held the gift that proved magic existed, even here, even for forgotten children in the depths of space. She smiled through her tears and began planning how to wake the others, how to share this moment of pure wonder that would change everything they thought they knew about their place in the universe. The night shift was ending, but for the children of the Zephyrian orphanage, Christmas morning was about to begin. The morning cycle lights gradually brightened in the common room of the Zephyrian orphanage, simulating the sunrise that the children would never see aboard Kepler station. What the artificial dawn revealed sent shockwaves through 47 young hearts. Gifts, real, physical, impossible gifts sat beside each sleeping space, wrapped in materials that caught the light and reflected it in patterns that seemed almost alive. The presents weren't uniform or mass-produced. Each one was clearly chosen for its recipient, shaped and sized and colored in ways that spoke to individual needs and dreams. Little Gorp was the first to wake, his crystalline body naturally responding to the increasing light levels. The crystalline child's internal structures began their morning refraction patterns when he spotted the package beside his sleeping mat. His entire body flashed brilliant rainbow colors in surprise, a reaction that immediately woke half the dormitory. Gifts, Gorp's harmonic voice chimed like wind through crystal caves. There are gifts everywhere. The common room erupted into chaos as children of 17 different species scrambled to examine the mysterious packages. The younger ones cried with joy, while the older children stood back in confusion and growing excitement. Only Jex remained in his sleeping area, arms crossed and expression skeptical. "Someone's playing a prank," the young Krathari announced, his wolf-like features set in stern lines. "Probably the night supervisor got tired of hearing you all cry about Santa. These are probably broken equipment from storage." But even Jex's cynicism wavered when he saw Crix unwrapping her gift. The young Tenthari's translucent skin shifted through every color in the visible spectrum as she discovered the emotion-responsive puzzle. When she touched its surface, the device came alive with patterns that matched and amplified her own bioluminescent displays, creating a light show that made the entire room sparkle. "How did they know?" Crix whispered, her patterns shifting to soft gold with wonder. "How did anyone know that I dream in colors?" Nyx, the logical Hellion, had already begun examining his puzzle box. His mathematical mind raced as he recognized the complexity of the device, the careful engineering required to create something so intricate yet perfectly calibrated to his species' cognitive patterns. "This isn't random station equipment," he announced. "This required extensive research into Hellion neural pathways. Someone studied our psychology to make this." Zara watched the chaos with knowing eyes, her own gift clutched against her chest. The story projector felt warm in her hands, as if it contained actual magic rather than just advanced technology. She had not slept since witnessing the figure in red disappear through the ceiling, and now she faced a dilemma that felt larger than her 12-year-old mind could handle. Should she tell them what she had seen? Would they believe her? And if they did believe her, what would that mean for all of them? Dr. Varen Kass, the orphanage supervisor, arrived for his morning inspection to find unprecedented pandemonium. The elderly Zentorian's forearms gestured frantically as he tried to restore order among children who had apparently lost their minds overnight. "Quiet, everyone back to your sleeping areas immediately." Dr. Koss's translator device struggled to convert his rapid-fire instructions into multiple languages simultaneously. "What is the meaning of this disruption?" "Dr. Koss, look." Gorp held up his crystal growth kit, his entire body pulsing with excitement. "Santa came, he brought presents for everyone." "Impossible," Dr. Koss muttered, his scientific mind rejecting such nonsense even as his eyes catalogued the evidence. "Santa Claus is a human mythology. There are no chimneys on this station, no possible entry points for—" His voice trailed off as he noticed that each gift bore a small tag written in perfect galactic standard, but with a distinctly human style of lettering. More impossibly, each tag contained personal messages that demonstrated intimate knowledge of the children's individual struggles and achievements. "For Crix, your kindness lights up every room. Keep sharing your colors with the world." "For Nix, logic is powerful, but never forget that wonder makes life worth living." "For Gorp, grow something beautiful, just like you're growing into something special yourself." Dr. Koss picked up Jex's still unopened gift and read the tag aloud. "Being strong doesn't mean being alone. Leaders are made by lifting others up." The words hit the young Krathari like a physical blow. Pack-bonding species like his own lived by such principles, but Jex had been alone for so long that he had forgotten what it meant to be part of something larger than himself. His clawed hands shook as he unwrapped the holographic projector. "Where did these come from?" Dr. Koss demanded, though his tone had shifted from anger to bewilderment. "Station security protocols would have detected any unauthorized entry. The maintenance logs show no scheduled access to this wing." "Santa came through the chimney," Little Crix explained matter-of-factly, as if the doctor were being deliberately obtuse. "Zara saw him." All eyes turned to the young vegan girl, who had been trying to remain invisible in the chaos. Dr. Koss fixed her with his most serious expression, his forearms crossed in a gesture that meant business. "Zara, you are the oldest and most responsible child here. Surely you don't expect me to believe that you witnessed this alleged Santa Claus." Zara looked around the room at 46 faces filled with hope and joy such as she had never seen before. She thought about the figure she had watched climb through their ceiling, the careful way he had moved among them, the love evident in every gesture as he placed gifts that proved someone, somewhere, cared about each of them individually. "Yes, sir," she said quietly. "I saw him. He came down from the ceiling through the maintenance access. He knew all our names, and he left gifts that were perfect for each of us. He looked exactly like the pictures in the human cultural database." Dr. Koss's translator buzzed with confusion as it attempted to process this report. The Zentorian's logical mind wrestled with information that contradicted everything he knew about station security, human mythology, and the laws of physics. "The maintenance access requires special authorization codes," he protested weakly. "The ceiling panels are secured from the inside. Even if someone could access the tunnels, they would need detailed schematics of the orphanage layout and—" He stopped mid-sentence as the implications hit him. Someone with station access had done this. Someone with intimate knowledge of the orphanage's systems, schedules, and most importantly, its residents. Meanwhile, 3 levels down in the maintenance sector, Marcus Chen sat in his small office completing his shift reports. His hands trembled slightly as he filled out routine forms, his mind replaying every moment of the previous night. He had managed perhaps an hour of sleep before his communicator chimed with an urgent summons to report to his supervisor's office. Chief Maintenance Officer Zhang was a stern woman who had worked her way up through the ranks by being thorough, efficient, and utterly intolerant of nonsense. She stood behind her desk reviewing data on her screen when Marcus arrived, and she didn't look up when she began speaking. "Chen, I've been reviewing the overnight resource allocation reports. We show significant usage of the fabrication labs during off-hours over the past month. Materials withdrawn under maintenance authorization codes that you've been using. Care to explain?" Marcus felt his heart sink into his stomach. He had known this moment would come, had prepared for it, but facing the reality of exposure still felt like stepping off a cliff. "I used the fabrication labs to create some items," he admitted. "I followed all safety protocols and used only surplus materials that were scheduled for recycling." Items for what purpose? Chief Zhang's voice remained level, but Marcus could hear the suspicion underneath. Before he could answer, her communicator buzzed with an incoming message. Zhang glanced at it, then looked up at Marcus with confusion replacing suspicion on her weathered face. That was Dr. Koss from the Zephyrian Orphanage. He's requesting an immediate security investigation. Claims someone broke into the facility last night and left gifts for the children. Says it's impossible but happened anyway. Marcus maintained eye contact, though every instinct screamed at him to look away. I see. Chen, those materials you withdrew from fabrication. What exactly did you make? The moment of truth had arrived. Marcus thought about 47 children waking up to wonder and joy for the first time in their lives. He thought about Zara's tears of happiness and Crix's rainbow patterns of delight. He thought about Jex, who was probably discovering right now that someone believed he could be a leader rather than just a survivor. Toys, Marcus said simply. I made toys for orphaned children who had never received gifts before. Chief Zhang stared at him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. You unauthorized access secure areas of the station to play Santa Claus for alien children. Yes, ma'am. Using station resources and equipment for personal projects. Yes, ma'am. Violating safety protocols by accessing maintenance tunnels outside your authorized areas. Yes, ma'am. Zhang leaned back in her chair, studying Marcus as if seeing him for the first time. Why? Marcus thought about all the complex reasons, the loneliness and guilt from his past, the way the children's stories had reminded him what hope looked like, the simple human need to make someone else's life better even at cost to yourself. Because they're children, he said finally, and children deserve to believe in magic even if it's just once. Chief Zhang was quiet for several minutes, reviewing the data on her screen. Marcus waited for the inevitable termination, possible criminal charges, and ejection from the station. Instead, she said, Dr. Koss is baffled by how someone entered the orphanage undetected. He's demanding to review all security footage and maintenance logs. Problem is, if we conduct a full investigation, we'll have to involve Station Command. And if we involve Station Command, they'll want to know why we're wasting resources investigating gift-giving to orphans. She looked up at Marcus meaningfully. Unless, of course, there's no evidence of unauthorized access to investigate. If someone had, say, used their legitimate maintenance access to perform routine air quality checks in the orphanage during normal working hours, and if that same someone had hypothetically left some personal items behind by accident. Marcus stared at his supervisor, hardly daring to believe what he was hearing. Ma'am, I'm saying that your maintenance logs show routine environmental system checks in the orphanage over the past month, all properly authorized and scheduled. If Dr. Koss chooses to interpret mysterious gift-giving as evidence of unauthorized entry, that's his prerogative. But I don't see any violations of maintenance protocols in my department. Chief Zhang's stern expression softened slightly. Chen, you've been one of my most reliable workers for 3 years. Never missed a shift, never cut corners on safety, never caused problems. If you want to spend your off hours crafting toys for kids who have nothing, I'm not going to be the one to stop you. Relief flooded through Marcus so intensely that he had to grip the edge of the desk to stay upright. Thank you, ma'am. Don't thank me yet, Zhang warned. Dr. Koss is still suspicious and he's not going to let this drop easily. You need to be careful. No more midnight visits, no matter how good your intentions. Find another way to help those kids if you want to keep your job. Marcus nodded, but privately he wondered if there would be another way. The magic of Christmas morning was already fading into memory, and he could picture the children settling back into their routine of quiet desperation as the wonder wore off. What he didn't know was that in the orphanage 3 levels above, something had fundamentally changed. The children weren't just playing with their gifts. They were beginning to believe that they mattered to someone, somewhere in the universe. And that belief was about to transform everything in ways that neither Marcus nor Dr. Koss could possibly anticipate. Zara stood at the center of the common room, her story projector casting holographic images that danced through the air around her. But instead of the usual tales she told to comfort the younger children, she was creating something new. This is the story of the Christmas miracle at Kepler Station, she announced, her voice carrying new confidence and purpose. The story of how we learned that magic isn't about what you believe in, but about what you choose to become. The holographic display showed the orphanage, the children, and a figure in red moving through maintenance tunnels with a bag of impossible gifts. But as Zara continued her story, the images began to change, showing the children themselves transforming from forgotten orphans into something more. Santa doesn't just bring gifts, Zara explained to her fascinated audience. Santa shows us that we have the power to bring joy to others, and now that we know magic is real, we have to decide what we're going to do with that knowledge. The children listened with growing excitement as Zara outlined her plan. They had received something precious, something that proved they were worth caring about. Now it was time to figure out how to share that gift with others who needed it just as much as they had. In his office far below, Marcus Chen completed his shift reports and prepared to go home, unaware that his single night of Christmas magic had planted seeds that would grow into something far larger than he had ever imagined possible. 6 months after Christmas, the Zephyrian orphanage had become something unprecedented in the history of Kepler Station, a place of laughter. The transformation hadn't happened overnight, but the seeds planted on that magical December morning had grown into something beautiful and revolutionary. It started with Nick solving his puzzle box and discovering that the final compartment contained not just congratulations, but blueprints. Simple designs for toys and games that could be crafted from recycled station materials. The young Hellian's logical mind immediately recognized the implications. If Santa could make gifts for us, Nix announced during one of their evening gatherings, then we can make gifts for others. The idea captured the imagination of every child in the orphanage. Within weeks, they had organized themselves into production teams based on their unique species abilities. Gorp's crystal-growing techniques proved invaluable for creating beautiful decorative elements. Crix's color-changing patterns helped design visual communication devices for species that spoke through light rather than sound. Even Jex's pack leadership instincts found purpose as he coordinated efforts and kept everyone motivated. Their first project was modest, creating comfort toys for the younger children in the medical ward. Station regulations prohibited visitors in the pediatric unit, but somehow small, carefully crafted gifts began appearing on bedsides throughout the facility. Soft creatures that glowed with gentle light for species that feared darkness. Puzzle boxes calibrated for developing minds. Musical instruments that played in frequency ranges suited to non-human hearing. Dr. Koss watched these developments with growing amazement. The children who had once been listless and withdrawn were now animated with purpose. They worked together across species lines that had previously seemed insurmountable, collaborating in ways that put adult diplomatic corps to shame. "It's remarkable," he confided to his assistant during their monthly report. "Their academic performance has improved dramatically, their social integration scores are off the charts, and somehow they've acquired advanced crafting skills that aren't taught in any curriculum I know of." What Dr. Koss didn't know was that their mysterious benefactor was still watching over them. Marcus Chen had kept his promise to Chief Zhang about staying away from the orphanage, but he couldn't stop caring about the children whose lives he had touched. He monitored their progress through official channels, noting their improved educational reports and behavioral assessments. When he heard about their gift-making projects, he felt a pride so intense it was almost painful. His own life had changed, too. The experience of bringing joy to others had awakened something in Marcus that had been dormant since the accident that drove him to Kepler Station. He began volunteering in other parts of the station, using his maintenance skills to help wherever needed. He fixed broken equipment in low-income housing blocks, upgraded lighting systems in public areas, and somehow always seemed to have spare materials that could be distributed to those who needed them. Other station workers began to notice. The custodial staff started calling him Saint Marcus after he spent his entire day off helping repair a flooded apartment complex. The cafeteria workers started saving him extra portions when word spread that he had been quietly sharing his food rations with families experiencing hardship. Chief Zhang watched her employees' transformation with keen interest. She had worked maintenance long enough to recognize the signs of someone who had found their true calling, and Marcus Chen was glowing with purpose in a way that made her rethink her own priorities. The breakthrough came when representatives from the Galactic Orphan Relief Organization arrived for their annual inspection of the Zephyrian facility. These officials had seen hundreds of orphanages across dozens of systems, and they had never encountered anything like what they found on Kepler Station. The children here display unprecedented levels of cooperation and creativity, the lead inspector, a distinguished Altarian named Counselor Vex, reported to the station administration. Their psychological profiles indicate remarkable resilience and optimism despite their circumstances. We'd like to understand what methodologies you're employing here. The meeting brought together Station Commander Hayes, Dr. Koss, Chief Zhang, and several department heads to discuss the orphanage's success. Everyone had theories about improved nutrition, better educational programs, or enhanced recreational activities, but none of the explanations quite fit the dramatic transformation that had occurred. If I may, Dr. Koss interjected during a particularly heated debate about budget allocations, I believe the change began with what the children call the Christmas miracle. They claim that someone they identified as Santa Claus brought them gifts 6 months ago, and that experience appears to have fundamentally altered their worldview. Commander Hayes, a pragmatic woman who had little patience for fairy tales, raised an eyebrow. Santa Claus, Doctor, surely you don't expect us to believe that a mythological figure broke into our station. Not mythological, Dr. Koss corrected carefully. Someone very real who understood these children's needs better than we did and found a way to reach them when our conventional approaches had failed. The gifts they received were clearly crafted with intimate knowledge of each species' psychology and preferences. Chief Zhang felt her heart rate accelerate. She had hoped this topic would never arise in official channels, but now that it had, she faced an impossible choice. Protecting Marcus meant potentially undermining a program that was clearly benefiting not just the orphans but the entire station community. Counselor Vex leaned forward with interest. These gifts, do they still exist? Could we examine them? Indeed they do, Dr. Koss confirmed. The children treasure them and have used them as inspiration for their own projects. The craftsmanship is remarkable, and the psychological insight behind each design is sophisticated beyond anything I've seen in professional therapeutic programs. I'd like to interview the person responsible, Commander Hayes announced. If someone on this station has developed innovative techniques for working with traumatized children, we need to understand and potentially replicate their methods throughout the system. The room fell silent. Dr. Koss looked uncomfortable, admitting he had never identified the mysterious gift giver despite months of investigation. Chief Zhang wrestled with her conscience, knowing that exposure would end Marcus's career but might also lead to something much larger. Finally, she made her decision. Commander, I believe I can help you with that. An hour later, Marcus Chen sat in the station commander's office, surrounded by officials who were regarding him with expressions ranging from curiosity to disbelief. He had expected to be arrested when Chief Zhang summoned him. Instead, he found himself being interviewed for what appeared to be a promotion. Mr. Chen, Commander Hayes began, Dr. Koss tells us that you somehow managed to access the orphanage 6 months ago and provide individualized gifts for 47 children of 17 different species. Is this accurate? Marcus glanced at Chief Zhang, who gave him an encouraging nod. Yes, ma'am. I used my maintenance access to enter the facility during off hours and left gifts I had crafted in the fabrication labs. Without authorization, the commander noted. Yes, ma'am. Using station resources for personal projects. Yes, ma'am. Counselor Vex interrupted. Mr. Chen, may I ask about your background? Do you have training in child psychology or xenocultural studies? No, sir. I'm just a janitor who wanted to make some kids happy. The Altarian's feathered crest rippled with what Marcus had learned was a sign of amusement in his species. Just a janitor. Tell me, how did you know to design a color-responsive device for the Tenthari child? That level of understanding requires extensive study of their neural patterns. Marcus shifted uncomfortably. I spent time researching each species, trying to understand what would bring them joy. It seemed important to get it right if I was going to do it at all. Months of research, Dr. Koss added. I've reviewed his station computer usage logs. He studied xenobiology, developmental psychology, cultural anthropology, and engineering principles every night for weeks. The depth of his preparation was extraordinary. Commander Hayes looked puzzled. Mr. Chen, why go to such elaborate lengths for children you didn't know? Marcus thought about how to explain the complex emotions that had driven him. The guilt over his past mistakes, the loneliness of his exile, the simple human need to matter to someone somewhere. But in the end, the answer was much simpler than any of that. Because they're children, he said, and every child deserves to know they're cared about. The room was quiet for a moment as the officials processed this response. Finally, Counselor Vex spoke. Mr. Chen, the Galactic Orphan Relief Organization has been struggling with a crisis across the known systems. Refugee populations are growing faster than our ability to provide adequate care, particularly for mixed-species children who fall between traditional welfare systems. What you accomplished here with limited resources and no formal training is remarkable. He paused, consulting his notes. The children's psychological profiles show improvements that would typically take years of professional therapy to achieve. Their academic performance has increased by an average of 40%. Most importantly, they've developed a sense of purpose and community that's allowing them to help others rather than simply surviving. Marcus nodded, unsure where this was leading. We'd like you to develop a program, Commander Hayes announced. A systematic approach based on what you did here, but designed to be implemented across multiple facilities. You'd work with professional counselors and educators to create training materials and protocols that could help thousands of orphaned children throughout the galaxy. The offer hit Marcus like a physical blow. After 3 years of hiding in maintenance tunnels, performing invisible work that nobody noticed or cared about, he was being asked to step into the light and share something that mattered. I don't have the qualifications, he protested weakly. You have something better, Chief Zhang said quietly. You have the results. Those kids downstairs are living proof that your methods work. Counselor Vex nodded agreement. Mr. Chen, we don't need another credential. We need someone who understands that caring about others is a skill that can be taught and shared. Someone who proved that one person with good intentions and determination can create genuine miracles. Marcus looked around the room at faces that had shifted from skeptical to hopeful. What would this involve? Travel to orphanages throughout the sector, Commander Hayes explained. Training staff in your techniques, working with children who have never known stability or safety. It won't be easy work and it won't make you wealthy, but it could change countless lives. The image of 47 alien children waking up to joy and wonder flashed through Marcus's mind. He thought about Zara's tears of happiness, Jex's gradual acceptance of leadership, and little Crix's rainbow patterns of delight. If he could help create that same transformation for children across the galaxy. I'll need to learn a lot, Marcus said slowly. Proper techniques, official procedures, how to work within established systems. We'll provide all the training and support you need, Counselor Vex assured him. But Mr. Chen, don't let formal education change what makes you effective. Your greatest strength is that you see these children as individuals deserving of personal attention rather than as problems to be managed efficiently. The meeting continued for another hour, working out details and timelines. Marcus would begin his new role in 3 months, after completing crash courses in child development and xenocultural sensitivity. He would return to Kepler Station regularly to check on the orphanage and continue developing new programs. As the officials filed out, Dr. Koss lingered behind. Mr. Chen, I owe you an apology. I spent months trying to solve the mystery of how you accessed our facility when I should have been asking how to replicate what you accomplished. Marcus shook his head. You take good care of those kids, Doctor. I just gave them a reason to believe good things were possible. You gave them more than that, Dr. Koss corrected. You gave them the knowledge that someone cared enough to try, and they've taken that lesson and made it the foundation of everything they do now. That evening, Marcus made his way to the orphanage for the first official visit since Christmas. Dr. Koss had arranged for him to see the children and explain his upcoming departure for training. He found them in the common room, working together on their latest project, a series of educational toys designed for the new refugee children arriving next month. The scene that greeted him was everything he had hoped for and more. Zara was using her story projector to test narrative sequences that would help traumatized younglings process their experiences through play. Nix had solved his puzzle box so many times that he could now modify its difficulty settings to challenge children of different species and developmental levels. Gorp was growing crystals that would serve as communication aids for nonverbal species. And Jex was coordinating it all with the quiet confidence of someone who had learned what true leadership looked like. Santa, little Crix called out when she spotted him, her patterns immediately shifting to the warm gold that meant joy. The name had stuck, despite Dr. Koss's attempts to introduce his real identity. Marcus felt his throat tighten with emotion as 47 children surrounded him, chattering excitedly about their projects and achievements. These weren't the lost, hopeless orphans he had first encountered. These were confident young beings with purpose and dreams and unshakable faith in their ability to make the world better. "I have some news to share with you," Marcus announced when the excitement died down. "I'm going to be leaving Kepler Station for a while to learn how to help other children like yourselves." The news caused a moment of panic until he explained that he would be returning regularly and that their work would continue. More importantly, their example was going to inspire similar programs throughout the galaxy. "You mean other kids will get Christmas too?" Gorp asked, his crystalline body sparkling with excitement. "Better than that," Marcus replied. "You're going to help teach adults how to see children the way Santa sees them, as individuals worth caring about, each one special and deserving of attention." Zara stepped forward, her story projector in her hands. "Santa, we made something for you." The holographic display activated, showing a sequence that took Marcus's breath away. It was the story of Christmas at the orphanage, told from the children's perspective. But instead of ending with that single night of magic, the story continued, showing how that moment of believing had transformed into something larger. The hologram showed children throughout the galaxy receiving gifts, but more than that, it showed them learning to give. It depicted a universe where every orphaned child knew they mattered, where every refugee youngling found welcome, where the spirit of Christmas lived year-round in the form of constant care and attention. "This is what we want to help you build," Zara explained. "A place where every child gets to be special and where everyone learns that the best gifts are the ones you give to others." Marcus watched the holographic display through tears he didn't try to hide. These children had taken his simple gesture and transformed it into a vision of systemic change that was both ambitious and achievable. They had learned not just that they deserved care, but that they had the power to extend that same care to others. "We'll build it together," he promised, "all of us working as a team." As the evening wound down and the children settled in for sleep, Marcus prepared to leave. But Jex approached him with something he had never seen before, a smile that reached the young Krathari's eyes. "Santa," Jex said quietly, "I wanted you to know something. You didn't just bring us presents that night. You brought us proof that when someone really cares, impossible things become possible." He paused, searching for words to express something larger than gratitude. "We're going to make sure every kid in the galaxy gets that same proof. We're going to make sure nobody has to stop believing in magic just because they're alone." Marcus nodded, unable to speak past the emotion in his throat. As he made his way back to his quarters, he thought about the journey ahead. Learning new skills, visiting distant orphanages, working with children who had endured losses and trauma beyond imagination. It would be challenging work, sometimes heartbreaking work, but he would face it with the knowledge that it was possible to plant seeds of hope that grew into forests of change. He had seen the proof in 47 alien children who had learned to believe in themselves by first believing in someone who cared enough to climb down a chimney that didn't exist. The next morning, Marcus began preparations for his new life. He had been a janitor who cleaned up other people's messes, invisible and unremarked. Soon he would be a teacher, a counselor, a professional miracle worker whose job was to help children discover their own capacity for joy and wonder. The transformation seemed impossible, but then again, so had everything else about this story. Sometimes the most important magic wasn't about what you believed in, but about what you chose to become when someone believed in you. And throughout the galaxy, in orphanages and refugee centers and forgotten corners where children huddled together for warmth, the legend was already beginning to spread. The story of Santa Claus who came to alien orphans, who proved that every child mattered regardless of their species or circumstances, who showed that one person with enough determination could climb through any chimney, even ones that existed only in the heart. The story was growing, changing, adapting to new cultures and new needs. But at its core, it remained the same simple truth that Marcus Chen had discovered that Christmas Eve. that the greatest gift any being could receive was the knowledge that they were worth caring about, and the greatest gift they could give was extending that same care to others. Christmas had come to the galaxy, and it was here to stay.